Welcome to The Plunge with Derek Holser. Today we begin a new series, one that I hope to do every year. A series that steps back from our conversations on theology, philosophy, and culture, literature, George MacDonald, the Inklings, and a host of other topics that we've covered to date, and will continue to cover in different degrees and with different perspectives in the years to come. But every year I want to take a moment and produce a series entitled The Human Series, where we explore what it means to actually be a human. This is something that we all do every day, right? You're a human, which means you're watching or listening to The Plunge. But what is it about being human that makes us so extraordinary? And so the series that we're launching this summer is entitled Formation, Identity, Intimacy, and Sexuality. Taking a look at how we come together, how we're shaped from our birth through adolescence to adulthood, how that influences our identity and who we are, the true self, the false self, what we think people think about us, what we think about ourselves, and what we think about God, and how that's all intertwined in how we interact with others and the degrees of intimacy that we may or may not have depending upon the relationships that we've experienced. And finally, that most intimate of all relationships, the sexual relationship, the one that is at the foundation of all future generations. I hope you'll enjoy this series. It's going to be a little different from the ones that you've gotten used to on The Plunge. I hope that you're willing to dive deep into this topic as well with me, as we've done in others past. This series will feature conversations with psychologists, mental health therapists, counselors, spiritual directors, and pastors as we discuss exactly those topics that I've just mentioned. Today's guest is a good friend, and I think you're going to find her to be incredibly engaging, straightforward, and as you listen and watch this episode, I am certain that you'll see that there's a reason why she helps so many people in St. Louis, Missouri. Margaret Fay is my guest. Margaret is a licensed professional counselor and national certified counselor with a practice rooted in the integration of mind, body, and spirit. Since 2014, she has guided adolescents and adults through anxiety, trauma, and life transitions, using approaches like internal family systems, EMDR, and polyvagal informed therapy. Her work invites clients to explore deep self-awareness, healing, and meaning, often at the intersection of psychology and spirituality. Outside of her practice, Margaret finds joy in time with her family, the beauty of the natural world, and the quiet comfort of simple rituals, like a good peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Hear, hear. She joins us today to reflect on inner transformation and the spiritual dimensions of emotional healing. I think you're going to love hearing from Margaret, as I've already mentioned. I am so grateful that you're listening today, and I'm so thankful to Margaret for being willing to take the plunge. Let's dive in. Well, joining me today is a very special guest, Margaret Fay, a good friend of mine, and a genuine gem of a person. Margaret, you're not only gifted in your work, but you're also dynamic in your family and community. And so I'm grateful that you could join me today.
Thank you so much for having me and for allowing me to do a first-time podcast ever with you on your show. Good luck to us all.
That's right. Godspeed.
Yes.
Now here's the thing. We're
Yeah.
recording, and it's summer break, right?
Summer break, full swing.
Okay. And Margaret, you have a full household, a
Mm-hmm.
large family. And tell us a little bit about day to day and the whole sort of bio of what's going on for you in St. Louis right now.
At the Fay house right now, my husband Zach and I are swimming in little kids. So our oldest is 7, and then we have 6, and then 4, and then an upcoming 2-year-old. And so summer is, I definitely, last week was our first week, and I could tell I don't have the stamina for it yet. Like I could
Hmm.
tell that It's a lot more, and I'm going to bed by 8:30, which I'm not mad about at all. But it's fun, you know. The energy is spent on fun things, and the magic of summer is very real for our kids, which means I get to re-experience the magic of summer because nothing changes in my adult life. But I get to borrow from the fact that, you know, remember when you're a kid and summer was like 4 years long, and it was just like so. It's very fun. We are so tired. And yeah, I get 2 days a week to go into the office and stretch a different muscle being with clients. And that helps to do a little of the balancing that I need to be able to re enter and then do the pool, be outside. We're doing the creek this year a lot. And yeah, so right now it's all working. I can tell I need a little bit more muscle for their
Hmm.
energy this summer, but it's magical and sweet, and I'm already having a good time.
Oh my goodness. And do you all experience lightning bugs or fireflies? What do you call them in St.
Yes.
Louis?
I call them lightning bugs.
Okay.
I just saw them the other night. And it's funny because our kids mostly go to sleep before it gets dark enough for them. But I think this might be the year when we really get into it because they're staying up a little bit later. But it's light so late that we're
Yes.
like, sorry, y'all are done for the day.
We're all done. What time does the first one start to rouse you in the house?
Um, well, Zach and I are very committed to being awake before everyone else
Okay.
is. So I think we've done a pretty good job. I don't know if you know about these things, but they're little alarm clocks that go in kids' rooms, and because they can't tell time, they turn on
Okay.
lights. So yellow is you can wake up and you can play in your room, and green is you can leave your room. And my
Wow.
kids, a lot of kids are like, "Pfft, sure. But my kids like, I think they think it's, I don't know, nice. So 6:45 is when they can leave their rooms, but Zach and I are usually up by then.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's so many great innovations
Yeah,
for
I
parenting
know.
today.
I
Man,
know.
I missed out.
You missed
Let's
out.
see if Leah wants to have one more just so we can experience that. I,
Truly, innovation, technology, they're throwing it at us moms, which I so appreciate. And for these kids, it's great.
yeah, I don't think Leah would go for that idea now that our youngest is 18. Starting all over again, that
You know
probably.
what? That would feel pretty disorienting, I think, probably at this point.
Yeah. Well, you've got a beautiful family. I have enjoyed my time.
Yeah.
I've been able to visit Zach and Margaret and the gang, and they're just the sweetest kids. So kudos to you. You mentioned that you spend a couple of days in the office,
Hmm.
and could you tell us what your work consists of, and also what drew you to choosing this as your vocation?
Yeah. So I'm a mental health therapist. I have my LPC license in professional counseling. So my particular practice, I think I would say I see teenagers from about 13, 14, all the way up through adults. My focus is on anxiety, treating anxiety and depression, and I have special training in trauma, a particular modality called EMDR. And then I'm just interested in everything in between. So that would be my probably the main populations I see, mostly women, single girls, people going through life transitions, people in the aftermath of trauma. So that is something that I'm deeply interested in. I was listening to a podcast the other day, and it was with another therapist, and she was like, well, you know, we get into this work because we want to help people. And I was like, I don't think I did, which sounds bad because I don't mind that it helped. Like, it's a really good byproduct of it. But honestly, I got into it because it's so fascinating to me.
Hmm.
People's stories are, I'm just endlessly interested in why people are the way they are. So for me, initially, it's just, I think it's so interesting. And then the fact that in exploring your story and understanding why you do the things that you do, the fact that that can help you out of it, that's like a great bonus consequence of it. Mostly, I just am fascinated by it. I think I took my first psychology class in college and was deeply hooked ever since. I want to know
Wow.
everything about all the things.
Yeah, so really the dynamics of how the human psyche comes together and
Mm-hmm.
is shaped, right? And of course, that's the whole topic of this series is
Yeah.
how we are formed
Yes.
both within and without, and how that shapes what we perceive ourselves to be, and that thus our
Yes.
identity, and how
Mm-hmm.
that leads us into relationships,
Yeah.
intimacy, and of course the most intimate relationship of all, sexual relationships.
Yeah.
But you mentioned something I was curious about. You said EMDR. Is that
Yeah.
uh, I don't know if that will take us down a rabbit trail, but I never mind. What is that?
Have you ever heard of it before?
No.
Okay, so it stands for eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. And so it's a modality of therapy that was created to help people process traumatic events with the idea that, when you sleep at night, if you looked at your eyes, they'd be going kind of back and forth in REM. And we don't totally know everything about the brain, but there's something about that bilateral movement back and forth that helps to facilitate long-term memory storage. So with
So
don't
trippy, isn't it? Right?
so trippy. Don't even ask EMDR people. They don't really know. If they say they do, they're lying to you. But so it's kind of taking the rapid reprocessing of bilateral stimulation. It was first formed by basically Derek, like I would hold my fingers in front of you and your eyes would track back and
Hmm.
forth, back and forth. Now you can do it by holding tappers that buzz in your hand back and forth, back and forth. You can do it with auditory stimulation. So it uses bilateral stimulation to desensitize traumatic events
Hmm.
by bringing, the whole experience back together. When trauma happens, I like to think of it like if you stepped on a potato chip, it just fragments the experiences. So it throws the images one place, the sensations one place. It throws your emotions in
And
a
by
place. Mhm.
Margaret, sorry, by one
Yeah.
place you mean the locus of recall in the mind, in the actual physical brain?
Like the memory
Yeah.
itself gets fragmented so that, as you experience your present, you would be maybe responding to a smell, but it doesn't have any like images to go with it. It doesn't have
Okay.
any story.
Hmm.
The narrative of the whole thing gets exploded.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, I can understand that from
Yeah.
my own situations. Okay.
Yes. So imagine, so EMDR helps you to get to a place with the facilitator where it drops you into a traumatic memory, and it's as bad as it sounds. And it brings all of that story together. It brings the image it back
Mm.
into connection with the sensation in your body, with the emotions that you are feeling, with the cognitions that you are maybe telling yourself, puts it back together, and then with the rapid reprocessing, instead of being stuck there and overwhelmed, you're with a safe person, and the bilateral movement allows you to move past it really quickly. So you're
Hmm.
not stuck there, it's not too overwhelming, you see it at a glance and then it moves.
Okay.
And so it was developed for, capital T trauma, right? Where, people coming home from war or who've experienced a natural disaster. Now it's been modified and can be used for more of the complex trauma world, lowercase t traumas. But I think of it essentially like good candidates are people who are just stuck, like maybe they
Mm.
know what's true up here, but their body doesn't seem to catch up to it. They're
Hmm.
still responding to a hard conversation with huge anxiety. They still respond, in their marriage and intimacy, even though they know their partner's safe, their body is completely shut down. So when there's disintegration like that, EMDR is really interesting to be able to bring all those things together and move past it quickly.
Wow. Wow. Boy. That so is this part of your practice
Mhm.
currently?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Hmm.
You're dealing with some heavy stuff, Margaret.
It's heavy stuff. It's
I
really,
mean, I know because
go
I
ahead.
know you as a person outside of your practice, I can see how your disposition would make you very effective and just an incredible therapist. So, anyway.
That's very kind. What's cool about especially EMDR is it's people's brains doing the whole work. Like I don't intervene very rarely. I think
Mm,
maybe what you're naming a little bit is I do have to hold the space. Like I feel like I'm a human emotional container, and they have to feel like they won't be alone. And so as much as I'm not doing anything, which is so cool, like I'm not doing it, their brain's doing all of it. I'm a container, and as long as I can stay kind of sturdy, and sometimes that's easier and sometimes that's harder, people really do most of the work in therapy, I
yeah,
find.
yeah, yeah. I could concur with that. I think, would you say that it's analogous to physical fitness training?
In what way?
Like it with respect to the trainer provides the setting and provides
Mm-hmm.
the activity, but they have to engage, they have to show up, they have to do the
Yes.
work, right?
Yes.
As was famously said by Bill Murray's character in What About Bob?
Gosh, that is just a foundational movie in my childhood. So I'm so glad that you brought that up today.
Come on, I've come so far. I'm baby stepping. I'm doing the work. I'm baby stepping. I'm not a slacker.
He's doing the work,
He's
you
doing the
know?
work. He is doing the work. And I do think that's something that I find really important in therapy. Like, and part of why I think I can do it okay is because I'm not really there to help people. Again, I'm super happy and hopeful that you get helped. But I'm kind of interested in your story, and it's very much on you to do the work of the things. I'm just going to tell you like where you're probably getting it wrong. And I don't
Hmm.
know, if you want to be well, do it differently. I can't
Yeah.
do it. I cannot do it for you. I for sure know that.
Wow. Okay, so stepping from your practice and your area of expertise and particular modalities,
Hmm.
bigger picture, what are some of the ways you look at and think about or name the elements of our core being that shape human nature and sort of lead to formation with respect to the classic idea of nature versus nurture?
There's so many ways to think about it. I mean, again, like I said, people are endlessly fascinating to me. I think for a while I really wanted to find like a percentage, like this percent of people is nurture and this percent is nature. And I just want to know, like, well, which one is it? And that it's such a garbage question because people are so complex. But I want to say this was Ian Cron, one of the teachers of the Enneagram that I like, but he phrased it like this. He says, nature loads the gun and nurture pulls the trigger.
Hmm.
And I really like that kind of image because what is true is that nature, what you're born with, is more influential and more complex, I think, than we understand. There's a whole field called epigenetics. Do you know much about
Yes,
that?
I do.
That it's now no longer like what your parents are giving you, but you are in the womb of your mom, who was in the womb of her mom, and what was happening to her mom was happening to like that whole thing is so deeply complex.
Hmm.
And also to the degree that your environment pulls the trigger or sets things in motion, some of that stuff will never display itself, or you kind of don't stand a chance for some things. So it's so individualized and so complex that I think all the layers that we try and find language to explore it is helpful, whether that's personality tests or story work or learning about your history, like what were your grandparents going through,
Hmm.
and their parents, the generational stuff that comes through you. Yeah, I mean, you could do it forever.
Yes. Well, we don't have that much time today, but eventually we'll get there. I'm trying to decide which way to go, but I wanna touch on one more point and then talk a little bit about your particular way of framing it for people.
Yeah.
So I want to ask the question about childhood experiences. since you referenced epigenetics, I have a cursory understanding and have certainly been fascinated by the idea, both as a physiological phenomenon, but also connecting it theologically
Yeah.
to concepts and stories and accounts presented in the scripture, et cetera. But just if you could, would you say that those sort of pulling the trigger events is the bulk of the work that you do helping people to understand the totality of how the trigger was pulled, the events that are negative nurture, let's call it, or trauma? Is that the gist of what you're doing when you talk about people being stuck? Or is it more, it's more complex, obviously?
Yeah. What's cool is it's like, this is such a therapist thing to say, bleh, but it is true and cool that it's like it's both and, right? For some people, what is stuck, you don't really need to know. You don't need to know the whole background of it all. You can just see the disconnect. You can see how it's not working in their lives, and you can have a general, very vague sense of like, you didn't get here by accident. You know, you just didn't.
Yeah,
There's
yeah.
reasons why you're here. And so, like, let's deal with the present and move forward. And I think that's really useful. I think I got into the therapy work doing so much story work that probably, I don't know, 10 years ago, I would have been like, but you don't know about their relationship with their mom. And at this point, I'm like, people are busy, okay? You know what? They got things to do, people to see. Like, let's help them in their lives right now.
Yeah, yeah.
But to help form like self compassion, a relationship to the stories that you tell yourself in your head or the way you talk to yourself, a lot of times understanding the how you got there helps. It helps you to understand your different parts at play. It helps you to identify the stories going on in your head constantly and like where they come from and why they bend that way. So I
Hmm.
think for self knowledge and the development of self compassion, which you will utilize moving forward, story work is so helpful there. And so it's a both end. It's great that you don't need it. And also if you have time to do it and something that will facilitate it, which is not always only therapy, it's really worthwhile.
Interesting. Okay, so what is story work, Margaret?
Yeah. So story work would be trying to understand your primary attachments, if you've heard of attachment theory, the context
Can
in,
you
yeah.
can you articulate attachment theory?
Yeah. Can I yes, absolutely. I know exactly how to articulate attachment theory. But basically, it's the idea that your family context, your primary caregivers,
Hmm.
are the ones who set up basically your feelings of safety in the world. And those
Hmm.
happen really early, really young, and then they stick for a while. So there's insecure attachment, which could be someone
Hmm.
who's got a nervous system who's just wired generally more anxiously in relationships and towards the world. And there are people who are avoidant, your girl, who are more, I'm not anxious, but I'm also not going to deal with it. I'm also gonna just like peace out and be in my own world.
Just to be clear, you just classified yourself, right? When
Oh,
you
yeah,
said
for sure.
your girl. Okay,
Your girl is,
yeah, as in Margaret, not like you're a female.
yeah.
Sorry.
Sorry, I spend a lot of time with teenagers, and you will hear
Yeah,
that. You will hear
it's
that.
it's super helpful for us old folk.
Yeah, I will be the bridge. I will be the
Thank
bridge.
you.
They teach me a lot, these kids.
All right.
Um,
Sorry. So people, different degrees of security or insecurity relative to
yeah,
safety and trust. And as you talk about attachment, like, the most foundational, right? Being fed
yeah,
when you're hungry
yeah.
and or maybe you miss a meal, all of the ways that shapes you.
all the way that shapes you. So what we've known for a long time is that there's the whole physical component of that. Like babies need to be physically nurtured.
Mm-hmm.
What we saw with a bunch of research done during a time, I think it was in kind of the around the Russia area, is when kids went to these orphanages and they had all of their physical needs met. They declined so much in their mental health and died really because they weren't being picked up, and they weren't being cooed at. And so we learned that there's this idea of emotional attachment that's really foundational in human beings being in the world because we're such relational, I don't know, animals or whatever you would want to call us.
Mm-hmm.
And so those early attachment, that's, so your context. Primary caregivers are mom and dad. They can extend out, but even when they extend out and you have like a really loving grandma, it still tells the story that your mom wasn't there. And so there's something about that that's going to form you as a person.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So your attachment styles, your relationship to your primary caregiver, how stressful their life was at that time, how much they were able to bond and connect with you. It's basically the idea of like a baby reaching out into the world and being like, is there going to be someone there on the other side? And what we find, and this is in couples work in therapy, is that for our intimate relationships, even as adults, with our partners, we're asking the same questions. It's that same
Mm-hmm.
attachment question. If I reach out to you, are you going to be there? And
Mm-hmm.
depending on how that went for us in childhood, we will replay that out in our intimate relationships. And I don't know, do they heal? Yes, they can heal. And also, we're just all going to have a bent. And
Mm-hmm.
it's useful to know what that looks like and what it feels like, and to be able to talk to our partners about the truth of that.
Yeah. Wow. Very interesting. I'm so glad you joined us for this series. This is so helpful, I think, for me. I
Yeah,
hope for those
great.
who are listening.
Yeah.
I want to ask a little bit about the Enneagram
Mm-hmm.
and then also talk about, with respect to the dynamics of whether or not a person perceives themselves as being spiritual, religious, or not.
Mm-hmm.
So can we go in that order? Because, when we first met one another, at some point prior to that, I was familiar with and friends with Zach, your husband,
Yes.
and the Enneagram came up, and it came to my attention that at least for a period of time was quite a area of interest for you.
Yes.
So I'm pretty like I know there's numbers and I know there's wings, but I'm not that well versed. So can you give me the rundown?
I will give you the rundown, but I would like to hear first from you. Like, how do you feel about the whole personality, like testing typing genre? Like, before we
Ah,
get into it, how are you
okay.
coming in?
Okay. You're bringing back. So I do have a psych degree. So my
Of
undergrad,
course you do.
yeah, my undergrad was psychology, as well as kinesiology. So like you,
Yeah.
I'm fascinated by the way this being
Mm-hmm.
does everything,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like we are ridiculously complex and extraordinary creatures, and the adaptability of humans is staggering. It's
Amazing.
staggering to me. So that's my background. The personality test, I've found two types of people:
Uh-huh.
those who take them relentlessly
Yes. Can't stop, won't stop.
to repeatedly confirm areas of their life that I think this is the motivation. So I had a wonderful colleague years ago, and routinely she would ask me, have you seen this one? Have you like assessment upon assessment, right? And
Yeah.
so I tried not to psychoanalyze the motivation,
I do.
but
I will. I am right now. It's okay.
yeah, yeah. So for me, I've done, in college they had us do Myers-Briggs,
Uh-huh.
uh, and over the years there have been one or two more. I've always found myself to be in any of the tests, a very like hard to pigeonhole person. So I've never had a particular part of the scale where it's like, oh, you're 100% this thing.
Yeah.
It's always like the introvert extrovert on Myers-Briggs for me is like 52-48. Like
Wow.
it's very, so I have a very deep interior life
Mm-hmm.
and am content with myself and aloneness.
Mm-hmm.
And I also have a very, I would describe it as a performative self
Yeah.
who knows exactly how to function and participate in social settings and be dynamic and engaging and all of those things.
Yeah.
So identifying which is the real me, I guess isn't that important to me. So
Yeah.
I don't know if that I personalized the whole thing so we can psychoanalyze my narcissism in this conversation.
No,
But
I think better this way, honestly. Speaking of
okay,
personality tests, there's one called the Big Five, and
okay,
one of the markers for that one is openness, and it breaks down into openness to ideas and intellect. And I'm so low in openness that I
oh,
can't think abstractly very well. So pulling it down to practicalities is actually where we could probably get somewhere.
got it. I am probably at the top of the scale on openness.
I bet you are. I bet you are. I bet you
Yeah.
are. Well, you remind me of Zach in the idea, because this is what I think I just heard you say, which is something like, I get the utility of them. I think they're
Hmm.
interesting, kind of like as an idea, but they've never really resonated to you because you don't fit really in categories, and
Hmm.
maybe you kind
Hmm.
of like resent the idea of fitting in a category
Definitely.
regardless.
I don't want to fit in your categories.
Screw your categories. Let's move on.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. And Zach's the same. That he has problems taking them because he will always look up at me and be like, "Well, it depends."
Uh-huh.
And I'm like, "What do you mean it depends?" And he's like, "Well, what's this? What are we doing? What's the situation? Who is there?" And I'm like, "You can't. It's not how you take the test." But I do think that is, I could use the Enneagram and follow that to kind of see, okay, that's where you would fall in the Enneagram based on even what you're saying right now. I don't really
Yeah.
fall neatly in categories. I can kind of go this way in these contexts, and I'm pretty comfortable going this way in other contexts. Like, yeah, I think that's a type, actually. And
Yeah.
the the thing that I want to say about the Enneagram or personality tests is I I like them now at this stage of my life. Not so much for like the party trick of, oh, I can guess what your number is and I bet you're like this. I like it more because it's a path towards self knowledge. And you've said a couple times already, who we perceive ourselves to be, which is really different than who we are. And to
Mm,
the degree that we can find like who we are and who we were made to be, like that's where we find our spirituality, that's where we
mm,
find God. But oftentimes, whether you want to call it our ego or our personality or our parts, that's another modality of therapy. We think we are these things and we're not. That's kind of the armor
mm,
that we've put on in our lives to deal with the stories that we've been given. And they're adaptive and they're amazing. But are they our true selves? Not really.
mm,
And
mm-hmm,
so to develop some perspective and distance from your personality is really helpful in finding your true self and
mm,
access to your your spirituality there. So the Enneagram for me has been the most comprehensive way of understanding, yeah, your ego or the armor of personality that you developed really young in order to deal
mm-hmm,
with the suffering of life.
mm-hmm,
I love it because it doesn't put you in a box. It reveals the box that you live in and it helps you find a way out. I think Richard Rohr said that. And
wow, I like it. I
yeah,
love him.
he's so
That's good.
great. And
Yeah.
so it's less, like to put your shackles down a little bit. It's less to like put you in a box and more to reveal the one that likely when you're not doing well, you
Mm-hmm.
default to. And
Mm-hmm.
if you're, a healthy person, then you're probably not that attached to it anyway. But most of us really are, especially in our 20s. Then they begin to
Mm.
really fall apart in our 30s. And then our 40s, we don't have one anymore. And we're freaking out about that. And then you're kind of free from it. So that's what I'm told the trajectory is.
Well, as someone in his 50s, I can tell you I feel pretty free.
Yeah. Gosh, I can't wait. I can't wait.
And real last point on the Enneagram.
Yeah.
It has 9 types, correct?
Yep, it's got nine
Okay.
types, and
Eh,
it's got a lot of movement to it, like we were
mm,
saying, because people are so complex. So you move to a different number in stress, you move to a
mhm,
different number in health. There
mhm,
are sections of it that tell you if you are more drawn to experiencing life through your head, through your heart, or through your gut. They have orientation to time. So all of it are all of these layers of figuring out,
mm.
how you relate to others, to yourself, and to the world. And you can go deep into it or not really. But what's fun about this, fun, that's not the right word probably, but the Enneagram is brutal. Like it's not a
Yeah.
fun. I grew up knowing about the disc,
Uh-huh.
which they do in a lot of business settings, and then the Myers Briggs, which really was like, well, I can't help it. I'm just an introvert, so I'm going to be rude to you. This is more like, hey, you're kind of a jerk, and you're a jerk kind of particularly this way in the world, and you don't have to be. And so it's
Yeah.
kind of a brutal if you take it seriously, really calls out your ego, and
Hmm.
you have to deal with it. And that's not fun normally.
Very good. Well, thank you.
Hmm.
I do like confronting the things that need to be addressed. So
Yeah.
maybe I'll choose the Enneagram as my preferred method of personal assessment.
Hmm.
You referenced my language with respect to the self as we perceive it
Hmm.
versus the true self,
Hmm.
and you mentioned spirituality. So my last question in terms of the formation element is for people who are spiritual religious, how does their perspective on God's relationship connection to humanity, do you see that that affects their personal sense of identity in any way? Does that question make sense?
Well, yes, but I'm now, as I'm hearing it, I'm trying to figure out what I think the order of operations is. You know,
Mm-hmm.
like
Right.
I'm kind of used to dealing in people's stories and seeing how they project already those already certain set of assumptions about people in the world, and then adopt their spirituality through their kind of lived experiences already.
Okay.
So it's not
Mm-hmm.
like a here's I'm doing my stuff over here, and then like here's spirituality. It's like that all kind of happens at the same time. And so even when we talk about attachment styles, that it informs kind of what spirituality you're drawn towards. Even, do you want a lot of safety and security? Do you feel confined by that and feel like, I don't know, people are trying to control you, and so you rebel from spirituality? So I kind of can't separate them.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess from my perspective, I don't know that this is true, but from how I hang out with people, I feel like I can a lot of times see their story and their experiences shaping their spirituality. And as they understand themselves more, then that opens them up to spiritual connections that they wouldn't have been able to see or understand or accept at different parts of their lives.
Yeah. So would that spirituality then just be an element of their attachment style? Could that be a way of framing it?
I think so. I think so. I don't want to say it's like it, attachment style is at the top and then everything else comes from there. Um,
Yeah.
but it's because it's a relationship, I think. I think maybe that's where it comes back to, is your spirituality is a relationship to something. And
Right.
attachment styles really, or your early experiences inform the way you'll do all kinds of relationships, you know.
Would you then say, I'm getting a little esoteric, so you can tell me if you want to move on. I guess my thought then is, though, spirituality is mostly going to be mediated by a person. I mean, or do you think of spirituality as more like, I guess your early, if we're talking about your early experiences of spirituality, there are going to be archetypes that represent a particular, whether it be a nun or a priest or a preacher, or right? Am I missing it? Because they're portraying more by their actions, I think, than their sermons in the long run, with respect to what we make of an existence of the divine,
Mm.
b, if that's a yes, then how does that connect to the meaning and purpose of my life, vis-a-vis not just the divine but also the human cohort?
Yeah. Well, we have to put it, I think, in the developmental world too, because at first you can't, when you're a kid, you can't do any abstract thinking about spirituality. It's egocentric, and then you're looking
Mhm.
at the people right around you, and you're listening to stories, basically. And what you and Zach are doing by trying to capture kids' imaginations with stories and teach worldviews through reading about people's relationships to one another and to something outside of themselves, something higher than themselves. That's where
Mhm.
spiritual formation starts. And at that point, we don't have abstract thought. We can't think of spirituality apart from, like the
Yeah.
people around us. And,
Yeah.
you know, so for better, for sure, for worse, our parents first, right?
Hmm.
And then
Yeah.
the stories that we're exposed to from there. And then as we go, and we want that. Richard Rohr talks about this also. In an ideal broken world, I guess, we would start kind of with kids with more kind of black and white. We're forming categories,
Mhm.
we are talking about like rules and expectations just because developmentally they need that. That's what their psyche needs. They need to feel a lot of walls around them because walls are protective because they're so
Mhm.
vulnerable. So they need a lot of, spirituality that has this is the right stuff, this is the wrong stuff, this is the
Hmm.
good stuff, this is the bad stuff. And that's this first half of spirituality. But we need to outgrow that. It
Mhm.
will not work much past, you know, childhood. And so we need
If
to,
if that.
if that, well, yeah, you'll have to re-understand your whole childhood at some point. But to start kids out with like, I don't know, like there's so much mystery, we don't even know. Kids would be like, that's deeply unsafe.
Uh-huh. I see.
you
I
know?
see.
So
Yeah.
those primary attachment figures, the people around us, the stories we're exposed to, they have to
Mhm.
anchor kids developmentally for a while until they can start abstracting a little bit more. And I don't know, I didn't make it up, but that seems to be the way it goes.
Gotcha. Well, it's interesting because it also, I can't even open this door because then we're going to go in a completely different vein, and I'll schedule a session with you later for my personal
Yes,
issues. Okay?
yes, I'm an EMDR you.
Yes, sounds good. So we've got this formation question that we've undertaken. Now we've got an identity, and it may be a false identity. It may be an incomplete identity, right? There's a host of ways that in which that manifests. But I'm curious now, how do you see an individual's concept of their identity influencing their relationships with others? I mean, I think that's a pretty silly question because obviously it does, but I guess I'd love to get more detail maybe in things you've observed or et cetera, whatever direction you want to take it.
Whatever direction I want to take it. Yeah, that's the kind of abstract thought where I just go up into the clouds and I'm like,
That's where I live.
I know. This is why I like to listen to people like you and to Zach Fay, because I just like jump on a ride and I'm like, whoa, it's so cool up here. And then I come back down to my own plane and it's much simpler down here.
Well, yours is probably more predictable
Yes.
and
Yum.
controlled,
Hmm.
right? So
Hmm. Hmm.
I understand the beauty in that.
Yeah.
I
It's
mean,
nice.
form and function, there's a reason they go together.
Yes.
There, so you keep the world moving, Margaret, and the dreamers will make you laugh every once in a while and make you cry a lot. So,
Well, and I mean, maybe this goes to your question a little bit. How cool is it, that we will bring these different perspectives of life together and try and have relationships with people who do that so differently and that
mhm,
we're meant to learn from one another and like do what the Lord created us to do in the world and also not be content to be blind to the fact that in some ways people are living in completely different realities
yes.
just by the way that they think and understand and what they're drawn to pay attention to in the world. And how fun is it to be able to talk about that? It stinks when our defenses or our fear
Mm,
disallow that from happening, or we think there's just like
mhm,
not enough room, kind of that zero sum mindset of like, well, then who's right? Is it your way or my right? And the real
mm,
answer just being like, yes, everyone's. That's crazy.
yeah. Yeah. So would you say then that's the essence of the response is learning how to operate in a healthy way? And I hate to use the word operate because that's a very technical, mechanical
Yeah.
term for something that is anything but mechanical.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
this friendship slash relationship with others
Yeah.
and giving them the freedom to be themselves, but also insisting on a certain level of self-respect and
Hmm.
all of. Am I on the right track?
Yeah, you are. I think when people make the face that you just made, which is just like kind of like a crinkle in your forehead and it's hard to get words around it, I'm like, I think that's it. Because it's hard to put language around because it is just so relational. It's one of those like you know it when you know it. It's very hard to define.
Hmm. It's got me choked up.
Yeah, you're really feeling it
I'm,
emotionally.
yeah, I'm gonna have to get a drink here in a second.
Do it.
Um, okay, I'm gonna just get it right now.
Pause, do your
Take a
thing.
moment.
I
Take a
will.
moment, Margaret.
I'll chill.
Are you doing good?
I sure am. This happens to me in sessions sometime. And I have to just be like, listen, I'm gonna take four, and you're just gonna sit there and watch me, maybe even mid
Uh-huh.
tier. But like, nothing can happen until I get whatever is out of my throat, out of my throat.
So you were talking about when someone makes this face that I made, trying to
Mhm.
express
Mhm.
this mystery. Is that a good word? I don't know.
Yes, yes,
Okay.
yep.
So now, in this dynamic of relationships and boundaries and self-concept and true identity, if someone in your experience has experienced a violation of trust, right? Now we're
Hmm.
getting to the real difficult stuff.
Hmm.
How is trust restored? How do people navigate that? And I'm talking about both parties in the relationship. And I know there are levels to this depending upon the intimacy of the relationship and the trauma of the violation. But
Yeah,
your thoughts?
yeah. Well, the thing that initially comes up for me about it is um, our the our initial defenses that come up when it's happened.
Mm.
And I think you've heard of Dan Allender, who lives around your area.
Yes,
Um, and
I
he,
have met him.
yeah, he is a great hero of mine, and I hope to never meet him. So I'm glad that you did. Um, that's just personally
It's
me.
okay.
So he puts it in terms of we can kind of default to self contempt and other contempt in our states of like protection. So, well, bring it down to my level for me. If you would, degrade yourself to just an example, maybe. So, let's say there's been, but we're talking about a marriage and there's been a betrayal. We've got these two strategies and we're inclined towards one or the other, but a lot of us bounce between the two. Self contempt would be blaming yourself. I didn't do enough. I wasn't there enough. This is because I'm not good enough. Or others, contempt, which is like, people are bad. You can't trust anyone. Everyone will leave you. Everyone will betray you. So both of those are psychological strategies to kind of nurse the wound because betrayal, especially a loss of trust. I'm talking about attachment a lot today. I promise I don't talk about attachment like this all the time, but here we are. It's a betrayal of such a foundational attachment, which equals safety and security and the ability to be in the world and feel okay.
Hmm.
So as that gets compromised, we have to defend ourselves some way, at least at first, psychologically. And I don't know, maybe you could try this on. If someone betrays you, big way, small way, are you more likely to beat yourself up about it or think like they suck so bad?
I'm more likely to think that they suck.
Yes. Okay. Same. I'm others centered contempt all day long. I can't imagine anything being my fault, really. If you're having a problem, most likely it has to do with you. I can't imagine I was a part of that at all. That's my default.
That's
But
great.
I hear a lot of people, again, I hear who take it upon themselves, and it's immediately a reflection of how they're not good enough or how they
Yes.
did something wrong, and that's why they're in this situation.
Yes.
So,
I
just
have observed this phenomenon repeatedly with my beloved.
okay, is she a self contemptor?
Yes.
Yeah. Isn't it funny kind of how we find each other?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And we're both very strongly the opposite end of that spectrum.
Yeah. Okay, so there's a big gap in between there.
Yes.
Yeah, to find your way back to one another.
Yeah.
And so I think the first part of what's really important is for the self contemptors to in healing, and I guess the other contemptors as well is more than the disruption happened in a relationship, but I find mostly that the long term negative effects are the fact that you end up doubting yourself more than anything. You doubt your ability to pick a good person. You doubt your ability to be good enough for that person. And whether or not psychologically you blame other people or yourself for it, it's really got to do with, can I trust myself to be in the world and make and
Hmm.
be safe and okay? So betrayal is really interesting. It happens relationally, but I find the first point of intervention really has to be with the fact that, and this happens for victims of sexual abuse, marital betrayal. It doesn't matter how obvious to the outsider the harm done to, like, they are the victim in the situation. Mostly what I find we have to work on first is your ability to trust yourself again, to move in the world and in relationships. So that's, yeah, the wounds are so deep that it doesn't just affect your ability to be in relationships. It's like, can you trust yourself moving forward to have agency
Hmm.
and autonomy? And that's a big one. It's a big one.
That's great. That's great. Thank you. I don't think that I've, as I mentioned, I've met Dan Allender. I know many people in my community who are close with him, obviously because he's in Seattle.
Hmm.
But the self-contempt, other contempt, almost not fight or flight, but certainly
Hmm.
is uh, the same kind of
Yeah.
paradigm.
Yeah.
Okay, so now let's say we're in a situation where I felt like I just broke my desk, but I didn't. So
That
we'll
could have
keep
been a
going.
disaster.
Just a mere flesh wound. How do we improve our interpersonal communication before we end up in a situation, right? Because there's certainly precursors to these betrayals or violations of
Mm-hmm.
trust, right?
Mm-hmm.
And is it my understanding, would you agree that it's at least partly connected to this ability to have healthy communication and dialogue?
Yeah, I think communication and dialogue are huge. One, the first point of communication that I hope for people is before they even talk about how they're talking to their spouse is like, how are you talking to yourself in the story that you're bringing into the argument, first of all? I find as Zach and I have conflict, I'm working on a story in my head that is kind of what's happening, but kind of not, you know? I'm bringing in a lot of assumptions. I'm bringing in a lot of narrative to, and it can be a real conflict, but the way I'm coming into it is super interesting. It's like it's got all kinds of past stuff. It's got all kinds of victimy stuff in there. It's not generous, it's not curious, it's not open at all. So there's this first thing that is like, well, there's communication that needs to happen between these two people, but also you have a whole thing you're doing inside yourself that you're bringing
Uh-huh.
that's like mostly not real, but it's really driving a lot of your emotions and the defensiveness in which you're coming into the conversation. So, do you know anything about that conversation? Do you know why it sounds like that? Do you know what's contributing? And do you know what
Hmm.
defensive strategies are at play for yourself? And that's fine. It's fine. You're in fight or flight. You got to figure out a way to regulate yourself. But how useful are those stories in
Hmm.
communicating with our partners? Not a whole lot. Not a whole lot. And Brene Brown is an author. She's a social
Yes.
worker. She has started conversations, and I've totally borrowed this language because I think it's really useful. Is she says when she talks to her husband, she'll say, "The story I'm telling myself about this is this." So it's a way to expose that, to put it on the table without like saying you did this to me. It's giving this generous assumption of like, I'm going to put this out there. This is what I'm reacting from this story. How true is
Hmm.
it? How much space can we make for it? What do you understand about it? And that all
Hmm.
has to do again with that first part of your question, which is what I think is like, what narratives are you bringing in first to this conversation? And can you make a place for it? And can your partner have space to hear it without being like, well, that's stupid? Because it is, but that's not a helpful thing to say.
No, no, it's not. Well, we're describing an incredibly mature response there, Margaret.
Yeah, it's ideal, I
That,
guess. Maybe
yeah,
not.
well, but it's possible. I'm
Yeah.
not. That's the point, right? Brene Brown, as an aside, one of the conversations I listened to her was probably one of the most meaningful moments in terms of the parenting trajectory
Yeah.
for me with respect to giving my kids freedom to not take the prescribed path
Mm-hmm.
of do this, do school, go to college, right? Just talking about her own journey, late to finish college, but also how they responded to their own daughters with respect to that stretch of life,
Yeah.
and feeling the pressure, to get on the hamster wheel and go,
Yes.
go, go. Anyway,
Yeah.
grateful for her voice
Yeah.
for sure.
She's provided such useful language and perspectives on vulnerability and shame and connection. She's a great resource in the conversation we're having today, for sure.
Yeah. So I'd love to. There's no smooth way to go about it, but I want to transition into the final element of this series, which is intimacy and sexuality. And it's interesting because I'm still trying to determine as I speak to people about what this series will be about. Of course, now we live in an age where sexuality itself is a loaded term. It means types of attractions a person has, types of sexual activities a person engages in, right? Personal body image, like it's so much broader and
Mm,
diverse in what that word can mean to 8 different people when I say it. So I even have hesitated to say it, but I'm like, I don't know what else to call it.
yeah.
And so I guess I'm curious, 2 parts, as you work in your practice, how would you define sexuality? Could you, or if not, just a perspective on what healthy sexuality as a culture? I mean, I think the fact that this term is so difficult to engage with represents issues in our culture
Hmm.
more broadly. That's my perception. You may not agree, but do you have any thoughts on that just general cultural issue, and then specifically in terms of, with your clients or just in human relationships?
Yeah. It's definitely a big one. It's like figuring out a working definition of sexuality and sexual identity is it is tricky. And obviously the social landscape has made it, I don't know, like stepping in a minefield, like trying not to
Hmm.
step on bombs. But the thing that happens when you start talking about sexuality, at least from what I have experienced, is like shame comes like straight up to
Yes.
like right behind you. And so, and I hope you do talk to a lot of people about this, and I hope you hear a lot of different things. I guess what I want to start with is like, I wouldn't want you in your journey, and I'm not even sure what your aim is in this conversation, but I would want you to like feel permission to not feel like it's a minefield that you have to not step on things, because that's like giving into the shame of it all.
Right.
And it would be so cool for us to like say things and mess up about it, or say words that people feel awkward about, just honestly, just to get the shame out of the room, and be able to feel the freedom to explore. Because I think what sexuality should be, and there's a sex therapist and couples therapist, her name is Esther Perel, and she defines sexuality and sexual identity in these terms. It's like it's the human expression of vitality and
Hmm.
longing and intimacy and play and creativity. And I'm like, none of those things are bad.
Right.
And
Right.
as adults, we're like so bad at all of those things, and yet we're the ones participating a lot in the sexuality of it all. So like, what's happening right there? But the
Yeah.
fact that we approach the subject now with fear, shame, are we going to hurt someone? I just like, I don't know. Just to,
Yeah.
against that energy, I want to infuse freedom and curiosity and play, and not be so afraid of the idea of it, because I just don't think that's how it's made. And we're not going to get anywhere trying to be polite about the whole thing. It's supposed to be like silly and fun. And I don't know. Everyone else can do
Yeah.
it. Christians can't. Why can't we do it?
Right. Right. Well, and to that end, I will let you know on this series there are going to be secular or non-Christian
Love.
psychologists as well,
Yeah.
and and yeah, and I understand. I think I'm reacting to my own formation
Mm-hmm.
in
Mm-hmm.
having that sensitivity, because it's certainly the openness trait in me that is not afraid to enter the minefield, but yeah, it's such a conditioning, I feel,
Mm.
that you're hesitant unless you have sort of made your public persona a specific aspect, right? And that's the other thing,
Yeah.
is how much it's wedded to what we would describe in the past and maybe still as like the culture wars, right? Sort of this juxtaposition of the Victorian Protestant, puritanical attitudes that are repressive and quite damaging in their own right?
Yeah.
Versus the hedonism and explicit, in-your-face, graphic stuff.
Yes.
Like, as you say, like it is the most intimate, beautiful expression, the pinnacle, because it is the creative act of the next generation. Anyway, thank you, Margaret. How much of a person's sexuality, going back to that sort of origin story, is, in your estimation, innate or nature, and how much of it do you think is influenced by experiences and upbringing?
Yeah. I do put it kind of in the category of, personality development formation. Like, I think if you could, I don't know, study alongside one another the trait of openness and sexuality, I think you would see that there's like, if you're high in openness, that creates a sexual identity that kind of looks like this. And if you're extroverted, if you're interested in, what are the other ones? If you're, so conscientiousness, neuroticism, that's another one of them. Like that all plays into how much you can explore what feels like good to do so, what feels unsafe to do so. Are you drawn towards novelty? Do you like more predictable things? And so I think it forms from the people that you see around you, their relationships to it, as well as your own personality. And what's cool, I think, about sexual identity is I don't think you kind of arrive somewhere. I think it changes over time. I think there are seasons. I think it's that this is a probably not a word that's going to feel good to some people in this conversation, but you know what? I don't care. It's like I think it's like fluid. I do.
Okay.
I think it's
Okay.
like I think that there's a ton of creativity that can and in imagination that can be a part of it. I think my thing is to use, I'll never know where this is in scripture, but isn't there something, scripture that talks about everything is permissible, but not everything is like beneficial?
Yes, yes. The Apostle Paul writes that, and
Yeah.
he talks about navigating customs and traditions in different cultures, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what may be offensive to one is not to another, and many things in his own mind would be fine, but because this person would be offended by it, he'll not participate.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm taking that kind of out of context a little bit to apply it to the idea, which is, you know, our what we feel open to and attracted to, and we understand about our sexuality. Like I think that's a playground. And
Hmm.
also, I think you need to follow the fruit, you know? Like, not
Hmm.
everything is going to be good for you just because
Yeah.
I mean, for Christians, I would say there's a lot more on the table that you don't think that you're allowed to. And so, like, go play. And then for in the secular world, like, we think everything is open. And if you follow the fruit, it's like, so just because you can, does that mean you should?
Right.
If
Right.
we follow the fruit there.
Right.
So I don't know. There's even different conversations for different people around this thing. Do we need to open you up for curiosity? Do we need to show you where this whole sexuality thing has gotten on top of you and it's
Hmm.
doing something to undermine your sense of yourself? Just kind of depends on how you're coming into it, which again has to do with how you were formed, your personality traits, how you saw it modeled around you, all those different layers of formation.
And one other question on that,
Yeah,
and then I just want to talk more broadly on intimacy and
sure.
relationships. But how would has your experience revealed? Is there a differentiation? Let me ask it this way: between is there a differentiation between sexual trauma, right, in navigating something for a person trying to be made whole versus, you know, other types of trauma i- in your perception? And I'm speaking very naively because I wouldn't even know how to begin to identify thresholds of trauma, types, etc. But I, yeah, that I'll leave it at that.
Maybe if like kind of asking, is sexual trauma like a unique per
Yeah, is it a unique phenomenon in that it manifests differently as a person moves forward in their relationships with others, or not?
Yeah, because you know what the beast about sexual trauma, and this is particularly true when it happens in childhood,
Mm-hmm.
is is this idea of like really truly not being able to settle on the idea that this wasn't my fault. Like that there wasn't something inherent about me that was the reason that this happened. And it is really, really hard to make space between the harm that was done to you and like it not having to do with you at all because it feels like it definitely did. And so it
Mm-hmm.
compromises your really, really deep sense of self. Like maybe there's something about me that's fundamentally bad that would have drawn this thing towards me in a way that maybe, you know, physical violence, because it doesn't have that psychological piece as much. It's very rarely physical violence without emotional violence as well. But I think the healing of how deeply ingrained the shame of it all is, especially if you're a kid and it happens to you, is something that really, really is hard to work out, you know, even into adulthood.
Mm-hmm.
I would say this is more vulnerable than I thought I would be on this, but it is a part of my story. Knowing what I know, doing the work that I do, there are days when for whatever reason I'm just like processing something because it just takes a million take turns around the event to try and put it together. Where I
Mm-hmm.
don't say to myself some sort of form of like, am I making this up? Like,
Hmm. Mm-hmm.
or am I sure that I didn't, you know, like, and put myself in the seat of the problem?
Mm-hmm.
Or there are ways that I interact with men today where I still put the locus of control on myself of like, okay, if they figure something out, then they're going to know that I'm this way, and so I have to. And while the self-contempt of it all would be like, men are pigs, so I need to hide myself from them, but what I'm actually saying when I look at it is like, oh, I believe that I'm dangerous and that I draw this to myself. And so I have to
Mm.
hide in whatever way because they're going to find me somehow.
Wow.
And so that's just
Wow.
an example of how deep that thing is. And as much as
Right.
I know that that is different, I come back around to it all the time where I'm like, "Hey,
Mm-hmm.
you're doing that because you think you are wrong." And
Mm-hmm.
like remember that's not how this works. And it's
Mm-hmm.
really hard to actually work itself out fully.
Yeah. Yeah. And as I listen to, thank you, first of
Yeah.
all. I honor your story and appreciate your vulnerability. I know that's not easy, and I know that there's been lots of work in intervening days and years. But I also then reflect, wow, you know, if Margaret, who by all accounts, you know, I've interacted with you a fair bit, you're a highly competent, confident woman, beautiful woman, like vivacious, lively, active, healthy. You know, if that is still a recurring aspect of your inner person, you know, how many times is that repeated?
Mhm.
Tens and hundreds of thousands across our society.
Yeah.
And how meaningful is the work you're doing to help others?
Mm.
And also, I guess if you'll entertain me, I'm just curious again if that speaks a little bit to this, because you kept saying, "I understand." or no, you said I know.
Mm-hmm.
I know,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Intellectually,
Yeah.
but there's something physiologically
Yes.
connected to our psyche
Yeah.
that we we do not comprehend how that functions. Am I right?
That is right.
Like
Yeah. Yeah.
that yeah, I mean I know it in my own experience for sure. And maybe that's what you're talking about going back to the Enneagram with the what how did you describe it? The unhealthy like we go to a certain thing when we're not doing
Yeah.
well. I don't know if those are connected at all,
Yeah. Yeah.
but
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting. I don't know. Maybe this is kind of part of the psychological language of the already and the not yet, which is
mm,
especially whether it's attachment wounds or childhood trauma. What's true is that that stays with us and it also doesn't define us and it also won't ever not be true and sort of kind of
hmm,
in the ether. And also what you can make from this is what I love about Christianity is what the Lord can make from that, not only in like the formal processing that you do of it, but as you continue to see it in your life and in relationships, what he can do with it is beyond you, and it's really, really beautiful. And so the fact that it sticks around, I don't know, it's not like a death sentence. There's just like continual beauty to be made from it.
hmm,
And I
right.
hope like people don't hear that as like, well, wouldn't that be nice? Yes, true. You still have to feel the effects of it. And if you can do the work though, and the work being, if you understand it, if you can spot it when it comes up, if you can hear the stories
Hmm.
you tell yourself in your head, if you can know what your ego looks like when it's operating, when you're being defensive, or you're trying to betray a part of yourself so that the other part of you can hide away, you can notice it. You can be like, oh my gosh, that's so cute what you're doing right now. That's so wild. That's not you at all. What? That's crazy what you're doing.
Uh-huh.
And then
Uh-huh.
what the Lord can make of those moments is so beyond cool. So I mean, I'm grateful for spirituality for that reason, which is like,
Hmm.
suffering is so not the end of this story. And it's not even just like, oh, cool, I get to understand it. It's like, oh, it's constantly being made into beautiful things for yourself and for other people. You do have to know that it's happening. You have to understand that internal landscape, not for resolution necessarily, but to be able to make something of it. And again, getting to walk with people through that process is beyond interesting, and very worthwhile.
Wow. Okay. Not to plug my podcast, but I did a two-part conversation with a theologian professor called All Things New.
Mm-hmm.
But he wrote an article entitled Time, Trauma, and I think it's Incarnation, but it's a longer
Mm.
title. But there's a short clip from it that we made called Trauma and the Tale of Despero.
Ooh.
And he references that story and particularly a line from that story about the way in which a character responded to trauma.
Mm.
It's really beautiful and powerful. But what is more interesting to me to hear you express what you've just expressed. At some point, we don't have to record it, but at some point in our journey on this life together, which is many more years to come in friendship, I would love to interact with that conversation with you because I would love to see this intersection of the theological conception of Christ making all things new and
Yes.
healing
Yes.
trauma
Yes.
in conjunction with the work of
Mm-hmm.
what you do as
Mm-hmm.
a therapist. So
Mm-hmm.
anyway,
I
I
know.
kind of
I'd love to
I,
tell you some stories of like my clients who I've seen like walk
mm,
through this. And yeah, I mean, it is just, it is very cool. It's very cool. We could talk about it for a long time, and maybe we should talk about it for a long time.
maybe W- would there be one that you would conclude our conversation with, or is there a way to do that, or do you want to just say we're good?
I mean, maybe really high level. I mean, this story is so cool that I am like, is it a disservice to do it at a high level? But let's see if I can, and then if it sucks, we'll just like record a different ending and be like, "What? We never talked about that. That's crazy."
Sounds good.
So it is a client who is dealing with sexual abuse, childhood sexual abuse, and I used EMDR with her.
Mm,
So imagine instead of talking narratively, we've got this bilateral stimulation going on. Her eyes are basically closed this whole time, and she is being dropped into a memory. And what we've done to prepare her for this moment are to like, kind of create figures for her that bring her courage and safety. And so she really feels like she's not being dropped as a little girl into a horror. But so
mhm.
she brings me, she brings Jesus, and we all like, we go. And so this was several sessions, but the trajectory was like watching her go from this like little vulnerable, helpless girl to then feeling this like empowered strength from growing up and becoming like brilliant and creative and having strong relationships and having herself come in and defend herself in those moments and have a voice. And then, but it didn't even stop there, which would be like justice, right? Like that would be the justice. She moved even further. And again, I'm not saying anything. She is with the Lord and she is with herself and different parts that she knows now that she's an adult. And eventually she got to this place where she was able to look at this abuser and be like, I wonder what happened to him. You know, like I wonder, like
Mm,
I bet his life is so sad. And she was able to get to this curious, like distant, compassionate place for like, I hope something good happens for him because this is awful. And I
mm,
was stunned because I think, and like Zach's spiritual journey is really informing some of this language, but I've always thought about spirituality and healing as this like justice. We gotta get justice for the victim. And like I just stopped there. Like, good, you get what was coming for you. See ya. And I think that for abusers too, I think I was there. Like, I don't care what happened to you. You suck. And all the bad things should happen to you. But what she did, and this is all imagination, this is all with Christ is on the side of her, is she ended not with justice, but she ended with like compassion and love and openness. And now, as I see her, she's got this relationship to this younger part of herself when that part of her shows up. And
mm,
she feels like very, very confident, but in a soft way, not in a
mhm,
self protected, like, F all the men in the world, but in a real, like, a sturdy, open, curious, compassionate way. And that was just her brain and the Lord going way beyond what I think would have been sufficient, which was just to get her like internal justice and move her to a place
mhm,
of beauty for everyone and
mm.
restoration for everyone. And she's a therapist. She just got trained in EMDR and she's gonna pass it on. And I don't know, it was such holy
Wow.
ground, I feel like, to walk on, and learned me something for sure in that process.
Oh, thank you. That's so moving. It's so personal. As you know, you may know Leah is actively involved in organization out here, Northwest Family Life,
Mm,
at the intersection of domestic violence,
mm,
and one of their therapists will be part of this series as well.
great,
So,
great.
golly, Margaret, this is really fantastic. I am so grateful that you said yes.
Yeah.
You, uh, just, yeah, enlightening, inspiring, and most of all, as I hope for everything with this channel to end with hope. So,
Yes.
thank you so
Yeah.
much.
Thanks for letting those of us who are low in openness ride on your coattails of your great questions and how they are like implications to much bigger things societally and philosophically. We can't get there without you. And it's really enjoyable to hang on for the ride. So thanks for letting me be a part.
Thank you. Today's episode of The Plunge is sponsored by the word recovery. Recovery, Recovery. It's a noun. It's the process of becoming well again after an illness or an injury. Also, the process of getting something back. The process of allowing your body to recover after doing strong exercise. These are just a few of the ways in which the word recovery is defined. And I thought, recovery, it means a lot of different things to us, just as those three definitions illustrated. But in your own life, as you think about and reflect upon the conversation that has just happened with Margaret Fay, I wonder what area you might seek to find recovery in and from. I know in my own life there are things that I've been thinking about going back a number of years that seem to, as she referenced, keep coming back around. Sort of like, where you've got something there that hurt and it's still a little sensitive, still a little tender, and yet there's hope that it can be recovered and restored. In particular, I think about the idea of getting something back. And as you know, at The Plunge, we always like to end with hope. And so maybe there's something that you had aspirations of doing in years gone by, and life intervened, circumstances arose, and you put it off, put it to the side, and in fact, it sat so long that you've nearly forgotten about it. But as you're listening to me now, you're thinking about that thing. I say, see if you can get it back. Give it a try. Go after it. Recover that dream. Recover that hope. Recover that aspiration. In my opinion, it just takes moving in the right direction. And not even the right direction, just the direction back toward where you were, the place you were, the way you were at the time that came into your heart and lifted your spirits. And maybe you'll find out, you know what? It's not for me anymore. And that's okay too. But you'll never know unless you go give it a look-see. So, here's to more recovery, both for myself and for all of you, and by consequence, our entire world. Thank you, Recovery, for sponsoring today's episode of The Plunge.
Yes. Well, I'm coming off of a very exhausting week, so I've been battling a little congestion.
Yes. Wait, the Duke camp, right?
The Duke camp, followed by 4 days with my father, who is in hospice. So Zach and I have commiserated on parents and all of that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So here we are.
Here we are. Bless you.
Uh-huh. Bless us, Margaret. Bless us. Okay. Are we ready?
We're ready.